Hey, it's Greg Lam here, bringing you your cloud accounting news, reviews, and how-tos. Today, I'm going to do a complete walkthrough of Xero's iPad app. For starters, it's not a do-it-all app. There's a few things that it does, and does well, but the rest is left to the web app. So what are the few things that it can do? Well, it can reconcile bank and credit card accounts, create invoices, create receipts, which are composed of both spend money and expense claims, if you're familiar with Xero terminology, view contacts, and add files. And that's it. It's a very small subset of what Xero's app can do as a whole. Let me now dig into Xero for iPad and show you around. This is the dashboard page. From here, you can see the balances of your bank and credit card accounts, as well as your in-progress invoices and your expense claims. If you tap on the plus icon, you can quickly add an invoice, receipt, or file. The dashboard is also the page that you can start reconciliations from. All you need to do is tap on any of the bank accounts. Your transactions will then be represented as sets of paired cards. The top card represents the transaction as brought in via the bank feed, and the bottom card, the transaction as it exists in Xero. This reconciliation works pretty much just like the web app version. If Xero has a good idea of what it thinks the transaction should be, it'll show a match highlighted in blue. You should note that it's not a match to a transaction that exists in Xero, but instead the creation of a match. I'm not too enamored with their match terminology, as to me it implies that a match has been found. How you know it's not a real match is by looking at the color coding. If it's a suggested match, the transaction will be highlighted in blue. To accept the match, all you need to do is tap on the big blue OK button. But perhaps you're unsure of the match, so you can look at the bank feed transaction by tapping on Details. Additionally, if the suggested match isn't what you're looking for, you can swipe left and find the option to create, find, transfer, or add note. As with the web app, Create lets you make a new transaction, Transfer lets you move funds from one bank account to another, and Add Note will let you create what the web app terms a discuss item. The Find functionality is what's a bit different from the web app. You can find transactions to match, but there's no partial payments or the ability to add adjustments. So, if your needs are beyond simple matching, you'll have to use the web app. Now, when you do have a transaction with a direct match, it'll be highlighted in green. I should go back to the blue match to make a bit of a distinction. There are actually two types of blue matches. The first is where Xero is guessing at what the transaction may be based on past user behavior. You'll notice that you can edit the transaction. The second type of blue match is a rule match. This is a match based off the bank rules that a user has created. These can only be accepted. There's no room for edits with this type of match. The last part about reconciliation on the iPad app is that you can see all your account transactions by tapping on the menu-like icon. You'll be able to see a list of all your transactions, but they're unfortunately not editable in any way. Let's move on to the invoices page. If you tap on an existing invoice, the details of the invoice will show up on the right. This is a good example of where Xero is taking advantage of the extra space afforded to it by the iPad. These invoices are editable, and you can do so by simply tapping anywhere on it. The functionality, as far as I can tell, is the exact same as the web app. You can add items, files, choose tracking categories, and even branding themes, which are templates. Unlike the app though, you can't accept payments for invoices. You can only create, edit, and send them. Now on to the receipts page. This page used to only allow for the entry of expense claims, but now you can create spend money transactions as well. In case you're not familiar with Xero terminology, an expense claim is for entering purchases made using personal funds, while spend money transactions are for transactions paid for using a business bank account or credit card. When you go to create a new receipt, you choose whether it's an expense claim or spend money transaction when you answer the question, "How did you pay?" Like the invoices page, the functionality is the same as the web app, as far as I can tell. The only difference is the workflow, in that it's streamlined for single line item entries. If you do need more line items, you can tap on the optional details button. This will also allow you to add references as well. And just like with invoices, you'll have the option to add files, whether they're from a pic you want to snap at the moment, from your iPad library, or from the files found in your Xero library. Unlike invoices, once you enter a spend money transaction, there is no editing them. You can tap on a receipt and then view attached files, but that's it. Expense claim transactions are a bit different, since there are 3 different states they can be in: draft, submitted for approval, and submitted and approved. You should note that once you submit an expense claim for approval, you can no longer approve it within the app. But if you have the proper role, you can submit and approve a new transaction or a draft. Unlike the web app, you can easily submit one-off expense claims for approval. Now on to the contacts page. This page is actually quite simple. You can view contacts, but you can't create them. Really, it's just a basic contact lookup tool. While you can see the notes and history attached to a contact, you won't get a transaction list. You are allowed to add notes though. And that's about the extent of the iPad app. I'll go back to the dashboard to show one last piece though. From the dashboard, you access the menu, which has a few extra options available. You can switch between organizations, view and add files, email support, change your security code, and log out. I just showed the Xero iPad app, but the Xero iPhone app is actually the same in terms of functionality. The difference is in the layout of certain things, given the space constraints of the smaller iPhone. Oh, and what about you Android users? Well, I doubt you're still tuned in, since I've been talking about iOS the whole time. But in case you're still there, the Android app has almost identical functionality with a few caveats. In the Android app, you can't add spend money transactions, can't submit expense claims for approval, and the user interface isn't quite as polished as the iOS apps. Other than those things, it's virtually the same. Alright, that's it for this walkthrough of Xero's iPad app. I'm Greg Lam, aka the Small Biz Doer, and I'll catch you on the flip side.